Android Sue Time Travels Through. Chapter 9. Ziff awakened the band of androids on the attic balcony about an hour before Lugita left for lunch. They were fully recharged and ready to make their desperate attempt at escape. Lycone was listening at the storeroom door to the lab so he could hear when Lugita left for the kitchen. As soon as he heard Lugita leave, he signaled the others. They were out the door and into the lab in a flash, Ziff bringing up the rear. They didn't have time to pick the lock on the little lab door, so they had Ziff quickly cut a hole in the side of one plexiglass wall. "There's no time to explain," said Sue to Tish in thought. "Just follow my lead." Trina quickly laid down a large towel on the floor near the south wall. A short cord was tied to each corner of the towel and looped together through a hook attached to a long cord lying on the floor where Trina had placed it. Trina tied a black thread hanging down the wall to the other end of the long cord. When Ed pulled on the thread hanging down the wall from the window above, the cord was pulled up through a pulley fastened to the window frame. Ziff rolled into the middle of the towel, and the others crowded as close as they could around him. Ed attached the end of the cord to a wheel which popped out of a door in the front of Ziff. As Ziff rolled the cord around the wheel, the other end of the cord attached to the towel pulled the bundle of androids up the wall toward the window. Just then the lab door slammed open and Lugita screamed, "Stop where you are!" Sue quietly said to Tish, "Open the acid bottle and have it ready to pour over the side, but be careful. That stuff will eat right through us and the towel." They were only halfway up the wall when Lugita came running over and tried to grab the bundle as it was slowly sliding up the wall. But it was just out of her reach. She grabbed the android catcher leaning against the wall nearby and tried to loop it around the bundle. "Now," said Sue, and Tish poured the hydrochloric acid over the side, trying to aim for Lugita's hand holding the android catcher. The bundle was jerking as it slid up the wall, and Tish did manage to pour acid on Lugita's hand, but some also splashed onto her face and the towel. Lugita screamed as the acid began to eat into her skin and ran to the sink to rinse it off. The acid was also eating into the side of the towel. Tish threw the bottle over the side and it shattered on the lab floor. They were all pressed together so tightly in the bundle, Tish could feel Trina begin to struggle violently next to her. Some of the acid had spilled onto the towel where Trina was pinned next to Ziff. It had eaten through the towel and was eating its way through Trina's side. Though she was in great distress, she was squirming because the hole in the towel was growing so large she had to grab onto something to keep from falling through. Before the others knew what was happening, Trina had fallen through the hole in the towel onto the lab floor. Tish had to grab onto one side of the towel to avoid slipping through as well. They were up to the window now, and Lycone was opening it. Lugita came away from the sink, pushed a small table up to the wall, and was trying to reach the bundle with the android catcher using the hand that wasn't burned. "We can't go back for Trina now," said Sue. "We'll have to come back for her later." The last thing they saw as they went through the lab window was Trina lying on the lab floor, twitching and sparking, half eaten away by the acid, and Lugita with a horrible bleeding acid burn along one side of her face from forehead to jaw. They pushed the bundle out the window, and Ziff unwound the cord from one of his wheels, lowering them to the ground outside Lugita's house, being careful not to slip through the hole in the towel that was still being eaten larger by the acid. During the time it took for them to make their way back down the creek to their old camp, Tish was worried about Lugita following, but Sue said, "Did you see how that acid was still eating into the towel even after we were on the ground? It will be doing that to Lugita's face, too, and she won't be able to follow us any time soon." "I guess that means the acid will be doing that to Trina," said Ed sadly. Lycone said, "I don't think she can survive that. I looked down at her just before we climbed out the window and could see that most of the skin covering on her torso was eaten away, and the acid was beginning to work on the mechanisms inside." "But if Lugita rinsed the acid off quickly, maybe the damage could be repaired," said Sue in a hopeful voice. Tish said, Even if Lugita hadn't been hurt by the acid, she would never have tried to save Trina when Trina could have been no further use to her. I guess you're right. Going back to make sure when there seems to be no hope that Trina survived would risk this chance of our getting back to our own time, reasoned Sue. There were only 7 days left before the time portal would return to the place where Sue came through. It would take them 2 days to get back to their camp, where they could repair some of the damage to themselves caused by the escape. They silently trudged down the creek back to camp, each sadly thinking about leaving their fallen comrade behind. Once they got back to camp, they spent 3 days making repairs, gathering the few things they thought they would need, and preparing to leave the camp permanently. What they weren't taking with them they threw into the creek or buried, trying to cover any signs of their habitation in case Lugita eventually followed their trail there. With 2 days left before the return of the time portal, they set off to meet it.